All right. How are you doing this evening, Foxy?
I'm doing well. I'm just hanging out. I've been doing some hardcore studying. Y'all know that I love the actual physical books. So, I've got my post-its on pages and I've been taking notes, actual handwritten notes. Yikes.
That
Like I'm
is,
living in the 80s.
speaking of,
All I
that's,
need now is a trapper keeper.
yeah, there you go. Pocket in a pocket protector thing, some pins,
I
colored
mean,
pins.
sure. Well, you've got to get the one pen that's got the four different colored ink in it. That's
That
the important pen.
I have a story to tell you a little bit later that's going to be really well, I don't know, it'll be really interesting, but I have this fantastic idea for a special item. So, and it's a little bit of a childhood story, but we'll get to that. For right now,
All
I'm
right.
for right now, I am Razmataz. Welcome to the channel. Tonight we're going to be talking about Tales from the Loop, Free League Press game. Been out for several years. It's won several Emmy awards, and there is a TV series on Amazon, I think. That's me.
And I'm Foxy Project. Well, I used to stream a lot of survival crafting. Recently, I haven't been streaming very much at all, but starting on Saturday night, that's all going to change. I'm going to do something that I always said that I would never do. So be sure and come see my channel on Saturday night and watch the fabulous potential train wreck that is going to be me
Oh,
trying to run Fallout.
it won't be a train wreck. It'll be awesome.
We'll have fun either way.
I bet I'll be there. See what's
Luckily,
going
I can
on.
laugh at myself. So if y'all are laughing, I'm just going to assume that you're laughing with me.
Perfect. Perfect. So yeah, make sure you show up for Saturday on Foxy's channel. If you need a link, it is actually posted in the description for this stream tonight. And with that, welcome in everybody. Thank you, Insomnia Night, for the lurk. Welcome in, Intoxicated Kitten, and let's roll into Tales from the Loop. Um, so all this research you've been doing, go for it. Tell us what you know.
Oh my. So you have two separate locations that they give you as an option for where you can set it. And of course, you can set it anywhere you really want to. But the two that they have, there is one in Sweden, and then there is one in Boulder City, Nevada. When I saw Boulder, I just giggled because I'm like, oh my gosh. But no, it's Boulder City, Nevada. And they give you a lot of background about the town and all of that. But basically, the setting is your kids growing up in this alternate setting of the 1980s,
It never
where
was.
things they're just a little bit different. But I did find it interesting that like they would reference things from the 80s that happened in our timeline, like TV shows and movies and music videos and that kind of stuff, which really it helps you mentally set yourself in that time. like TV shows, Cheers, Knight Rider, The A Team. I mean, come on. B, which funny story about me, I was a little kid when that came out, and the house we lived in, I could hide behind this wall and watch what my parents were watching. Watched part of V and had nightmares.
Oh, V even.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Part of me wants to go back and watch it now because I did the same thing with Poltergeist.
I enjoyed that movie, by the way. Or I'm sorry, the TV series, the first one, the original one. But
Hmm.
yeah, I did the
And
same
then,
thing, but
yeah, but it just, um, yeah, it's basically things like magnetron things that float in the air to move freight, across long distances. And um, so, yeah, there's all kinds of like really rich history that is just a little bit different than what we are all aware of.
right. Well, it's a basically like an alternate reality of
Hmm.
1980 on. And what is the cause behind it? So the two locations both have one thing in common, and that's the particle
So
colliders, right?
yes, they have particle colliders, and they've got magnetrine. That's what it's called. Looking through my notes, like I said, I wrote a lot of notes. I'm trying to look through and find where everything is. Um, so basically, like the U.S., the loop that is in the U.S. in Boulder City. Um, the story is that Sweden and the U.S. collaborated to make this thing, and the idea was that they were going to try to make it so that you could teleport troops across long distances instantaneously.
Right.
Of course, that never came to fruition. So now they have this big like particle like collider that they're, you know, people still work in the facility, but it's kind of on the downturn.
Well, the particle colliders also do other like all the electricity and stuff like that comes from it.
Hmm.
I mean, there's a lot of different tech that is introduced that's way different from what we actually had. Technology that we didn't have in the 80s, like hover cars and robots and
Robots. That was the big one that I saw that was like, yeah, robots are everywhere. And I'm like, wouldn't that be really interesting?
I think it'd be pretty cool. I mean, I would have been thrilled in 1980 if there was robots.
I would have been thrilled in 1980, but then I watched iRobot, and I'm not sure that that's really the future we want to be in.
So the game itself is based on, because it's not just 1980s, it's based on kids essentially. I mean, that's
Hmm.
you're playing the role of an adolescent between what 10 and 15 years old.
Yeah.
And it's all about, just the adventures that you would have. I believe each like an adventure is actually called a mystery, correct?
Yes, and they have different mysteries that you can solve. They actually have some really in-depth um, pre-generated modules that are in the Tales from the Loop book that I thought were really interesting and fun to read through and would be fun to play through. But yeah, you basically play kids. The cool thing about it though is that as one of the kids, as one of the players, you can actually die. Now you can take damage and you can be imprisoned and you can have all this other stuff happen to you,
Right.
but your character can't die. And like the younger you are, the more luck points you have. So if you're a younger kid, if you're playing a younger kid, you're luckier than like the 15-year-old,
Right. 15-year-old doesn't have any luck at all.
right? I remember
Okay.
15. That is not an incorrect statement. But even
Well,
things like things to do, like in the United States, they have like hanging out at the pool and um, playing TTRPGs, which is hilarious. And they have a list of RPGs that came out in the 80s.
Yes.
Some of them I did not even realize were that old.
Call of Cthulhu.
Cyberpunk, actually, I didn't realize it
Cyberpunk.
was 1988.
Oh yeah.
But then, like, um, in Sweden, they have things like kiosks, which are kind of like small stores that kids hang out outside of. Kind of sounds like small newspaper stands that you see on the corner in New York City. And then going to the school disco because they don't have proms in Swedish schools, but they have school discos, and they are just as awkward as you would think they would be for 10 to 15-year-olds.
Well, that's part of the mechanical piece behind it. I mean, there's so much to talk about with the world, but part of the mechanical piece behind it is that the nature of playing this game is way different from a lot of RPs or RPGs because you're telling two stories at the same time because you're telling the mystery piece to it, which can be really cool. Imagine, all the TV movies that you've seen out there, or movies you've seen out there, like Sandlot, or
Hmm.
um, you know, this world gives you that mechanical premise, that backstory piece to be able to create that for your game, which is awesome. And then you also have the other side of it because you add in the sense of normalcy to it as well. Um,
Yeah,
what
part
would
of the game is going through and starting out having like a slice of life for each character. Just normal everyday things that everybody would be doing. Like,
right?
a kid's eating breakfast and listening to his parents talk about how they're going to pay a bill, or, a kid's walking to school and getting bullied by some kids walking behind him. Just things that happen to kids that would put you in the mindset of a kid.
Absolutely. And all the stories that are out there. What was it like? The Last Starfighter. That was one of the ones that came to mind for me. I'm like,
Mhm.
wow, we could create this.
Mhm.
That would be like growing up. I mean, that was one of my favorite movies that was out there. Um, so I was thrilled about that. And you have the potential to, because of the RPG piece to it, where they're talking about the timeline thing. You're talking about Cyberpunk and D&D and Call of Cthulhu. You literally have the ability to, just like Stranger Things, you have the ability to you can tell a story where you're actually playing a game within the game.
Mhm. Yeah, and then through some weird mysterious thing happening, um the things that happen in the game could actually happen to your characters in quote unquote real life. Like, you could go down a whole rabbit hole. It would be loopception.
There's so
And
many possibilities. Sorry.
I love the artwork in this.
Yes, and the artwork is actually by now the story, the tale of the loop idea is all created based off of the artwork, and the artwork is by Simon Stollenhag. He did basically all the artwork for this entire series is done by him, and he did the illustration for the books, quite a bit of the writing as well for this game.
Yeah, it's even just like as a coffee table book, having
Mhm.
somebody pick it up and flip through it. It's just really amazing artwork.
I tried to get a kind of a cross section of it for the stream today. Um,
Mhm.
and a lot of the stuff a lot of the stuff that's just kind of posted out there on the internet is stuff that's coming more. It's illustration from the games, but it's also some illustration that was created for the TV series as well.
Mhm.
And it does give you a, a pretty good idea as far as the basics go to what this particle collider and the cooling towers outside of their, wherever they live at. Um, Now, Tales from the Loop, you mentioned already about the kids not dying. So that is an element of the game that is, it's a softer game in that sense where it's not dealing with, combat and death necessarily. There is some combat
Hmm.
in the game.
Yeah.
So you have that potential because I mean they're kids. I mean I don't know about you when you were a kid, but I know when I was a kid, teenager, maybe even a little younger, I got in some scuffles. So usually nothing too serious, but somebody'd come away with a bloody lip or a black eye or something.
Oh, see, now I'm a girl. We fight with words, which sometimes cuts deeper. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think that the idea that okay, so you're gonna build this character, and then you're gonna see, throughout the story what happens to them. You can't die, but there could be some really heinous crap that happens to you just because of the way that the story goes.
Right. What kind of so I mean obviously we're going to do a play test of this, but I mean what kind of story would you create? I spent, I had several hours driving today, so I spent a
Mm,
lot of time just thinking about what kind of story would I do because so I when I look at this system, I love the concept because it's so different and it's something to just kind of crack you out of the normal what you'd expect of role playing and give you a chance to do something different, maybe even play out one of your childhood dreams or fantasy that
hmm.
you remember or something like that. um so what would you do?
So going back again to my childhood, I had a group of friends, and our favorite movie as a group was Red Dawn. I don't know if anybody remembers Red Dawn,
Yes, Patrick
but
Swayze. Yep.
yeah, Jennifer Grey, like
Yes.
everybody was in that movie. But anyway, just having kids going out and like we would go play Red Dawn, like we would hide out in people's garages. It was a small town. Nobody thought anything of it. But having kids playing in that way and then have something happen where they have to actually switch over to okay, we're not playing anymore, we're actually like having to hide from this thing and go find something that would resolve the issue.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I know. I had so many ideas going through my head today. Everything from aliens to ghosts to
Yeah, or things like you could totally Scooby Doo it. It could be,
you could.
Mr. Withers in a mask. You know, there are so many things that you could do with it, or it could be not Mr. Withers in a mask, and actually be a ghost.
Right. Right. And you could it could be gremlins if you wanted it to be. I mean, whatever you would want it to be.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah. It's just to let you
yeah.
know where my mind was going today. I'm just all
I
over the
mean,
place
full
with
80s mode.
ideas. Yes.
But
So,
really, that's what the setting, it gives you that sense of nostalgia
mhm,
that I think a lot of games, like you play D&D, you're going into a completely different realm. You play The Walking Dead, it's kind of the same realm you're in, only in a really bad situation.
right.
Um, Cyberpunk, again, is a completely different realm with, and it's got things that are familiar, but less so than what Tales from the Loop gives you. It's like, okay, it's the 80s, and so all of this music and all of these movies and all of this stuff that you remember from the 80s happened. However, these are the things that are different.
Right. Well, and it gives you the system also lays out some of the detailed background for someone who's going to go in, and this system actually I think would be a perfect system for like a first time GM.
Hmm.
They give you it's very very easy to run, and I mean it is the year zero system, but it doesn't have some of the I don't even want to say there's complicated pieces in it because honestly zero system really just does not have a lot of complication to it. um,
Right.
but this one is really easy to run, and they give you a lot of background pieces that you can use, like what you're talking about earlier about RPGs that came during the 80s. They also give you like music that was like popular at the time. They give you companies that were prevalent, like I mean, like
Yeah, there's so much background
right.
80s lore. I love it. Like 10 music videos, and I think there's only maybe one of these that I can't envision in my head, but one of them that I absolutely can is Take On Me by a-ha, the best music video ever.
Yeah, I'm not going to say anything about 80s music. My wife is a big fan of 80s music, so
I love me some 80s music.
see,
But yeah,
I was more Nine Inch Nails, Depeche Mode. That was more my speed. But
back when that stuff was popular, I absolutely was like Nine Inch Nails, Pearl Jam, Nirvana, all of that kind of stuff. But looking back at this, it makes me remember how much I actually loved like the stuff from the 80s.
yeah. So what
And
do you
who
think?
hasn't wanted to have like a flash mob and do Thriller on Halloween?
Hey, there's that could be an interesting LARP if people are interested in doing that. I would encourage you to go do that.
Yeah, I think everybody at least once should be involved in a flash mob doing the Thriller dance somewhere on Halloween, dressed as a zombie.
You got to get the coat and the glove though. I mean,
Absolutely.
and the high water pants with the white socks and black shoes.
Hmm.
I mean, just have to do the real scene to it.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not going out all out, are you really even doing it?
Right? So with uh with that, when it comes to the age thing, okay, I think that probably represents a little bit of an obstacle to some folks. Um, most of the time when you're creating a character in a game, you don't necessarily create a child.
Yeah,
Um,
and
but
I know a lot of GMs won't allow a character that is basically underage, which I get. I think you'd have to have a group of people that is really kind of really just wanting to go back to a time when things were more innocent,
mhm,
really. And I mean, yeah, we're talking about playing Red Dawn and all this other stuff, but like a time when it seems like looking back, people were less jaded in the 80s. But just be my brain saying that? Yeah, totally could.
But also, I mean, this game could also be, I mean, if you really wanted to give like kids nowadays a picture of what things were like in the 80s, obviously, there's differences because this is the 80s that never was. But I think this would be a very good kid-friendly game.
Oh, I totally agree with that. I think it would be a good way to get people who are maybe younger kids who are interested in RPGs. It gives them a fun place to start that is also safe. Like it's got some safeguards built into it, just like the not being able to die and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
I think it would be a really good way to get younger people who are interested involved. Because sometimes D&D games can get dark, and we all know The Walking Dead is fairly dark, and Cyberpunk has its issues as far as, getting younger people involved if you don't have the right GM and the right person who has the right mindset to run the game for a younger audience.
Right. Right. I think that's just about any game, though.
Oh
Although
yeah.
there are games that are just inherently dark games, um, and they would be very difficult to get the spirit of the game and play it without that darkness
Yeah.
as part of it. This is inherently more of a lighthearted game. that
Mhm.
has, I mean, not that's not dangerous because, I mean, you're dealing with things that are, robots and rogue robots, and, there's all kinds of things that you're dealing with. Um, but with it being from a kid's perspective, it gives you that ability to have it be the PG-13 style game.
Mhm.
I know I've watched a couple of other reviews on this game, and that's one of the items that usually comes up in there is about the no death thing.
Mhm.
And it seems like people kind of lean more away from that idea, that and I don't. I'm completely fine with that. It's a game that's designed around the idea of these. The whole premise behind it is these are kids and this is their imagination more than anything else. It's the
Yeah,
80s that never was. And you think about the things that you did as a kid, those in the 80s, I mean, or 90s or early 2000s, whenever. I mean, kids play with their, pretending. That's the thing. You create a scenario and you play it out with your friends, in essence.
absolutely.
Maybe I'm old school. Maybe kids don't do that anymore. I
I
don't.
don't know. I mean, of course, I grew up in a very small town. So, my friends and I running around, like getting into people's garages and hiding behind their cars, nobody thought anything of it. They were like, oh, well, yeah, they're doing that thing again. You know,
Mhm.
Nowadays, I think people would probably have called the cops on us.
Right, right. As I remember as a kid, I mean, early teens, we used to. I mean, the funnest time to do it is when you weren't supposed to be doing it. That would be like nighttime when
Hmm.
you're out in the dark, and if somebody sees you out there, you're too loud, or somebody's going to yell at you. I mean, because then you have that element also going on.
Off
Um,
my lawn.
yeah, exactly. Get off my lawn. Um, yeah, and then we grow into that person later in life. But anyway, um, so you have that with this game, and all the different possibilities as to what you can do, the stories that you can tell. Um, System itself, as far as the mechanics go, all D6s. Actually, I'm going to flip over to a different screen. And we can actually take a look at the game itself. So this is the PDF version by Free League Press, Tales from the Loop. This is the map of the islands by Sweden where the particle collider is. So you get the map and everything to go in there with it. Handy if you want, if you have that visual aspect. Um, a lot of the time now, for me personally, I play Theater of the Mind, so I don't really use a lot of maps. Um, Sometimes I do for personal games, kind of in the background, just for that reference. Um, all of the so the typical piece, the starting for every Free League game is telling you, essentially giving you an explanation of role playing. And that's for the new people coming in so they kind of understand, how do you play this game? Because in essence, that's what it is. It's a game. Um, any thoughts on that, Foxy?
No, I think it's good that they go in and kind of explain because okay, the first role playing game book I ever bought was Vampire the Masquerade, and it had no instructions or anything in any way of how to play it. So I was absolutely lost, and thus X number of decades later, I still have never played that game.
Really?
Even though I had the book, I never once played it. I read through it, I really wanted to, but I didn't quite understand because it didn't have a clear picture of how to play. And also, I lived in the Bible Belt during the Satanic, so I can only imagine how that would have gone.
The Satanic Panic. So you're talking late '80s, early '90s.
Uh huh. Yep.
Oh yeah, yeah. I remember those days. Um,
And I think that's another good aspect to this particular game system is that even somebody who might otherwise go towards the, well, that's of the devil, can't really look at this source material and think, well, that's of the devil. So somebody could. For the most part, it's more lighthearted than that.
Yeah, well, and I mean, role playing in general has become more mainstream now
Yeah.
because I mean, it's used as a teaching method in our schools even and in business. So I think people just have a different understanding of what is actually going on. Um,
Yeah.
and there's so many things out there that are way worse than D&D could ever been. So
Facts.
you don't have that anymore. Where I remember that I played D&D as a kid in high school or actually middle school, and we actually a couple friends of mine and I would play during study hall, and we got put in detention for playing that game and
Oh
all kinds
my.
of good stuff. Um, they eventually backed off on that and didn't try to kick us out of study hall anymore because it is a game. It's not, there's nothing
You're
inherently
not trying to
evil about it.
raise demons.
Exactly right. Um, so you're
Not
not
during
really
study hall,
casting
anyway.
spells. You're imagining casting the spell and then rolling a dice to see what actually happens. I mean,
We're rolling dice. If anything, you could get us for gambling.
our imaginary gold pieces. Fantastic.
Indeed.
So, and then for this, it rolls into chapter two. Chapter two of the books actually gives you a kind of more in-depth look at the scenario piece to it. What is the loop? Civil technologies, military technologies. This area also lays out some of the not just what we were talking about with the music of the time period, but it also gives you the fictitious side, some of the companies that don't really exist and what they do, like the companies that the Collider company. Do you remember some of them?
Not off the top of my head. I do remember passing over that and going, "Oh, that's interesting." I do remember seeing the science timeline, which gives you a really good timeline of everything from 1950 through 1989,
Yep, yep,
um, which kind of helps draw in things like strange sightings are reported around the loop. Wildlife patrols are increased. Like, just some little hints of things that you could toss in for flavor.
absolutely. And between chapters two and three, it also then talks about the Swedish loop and the U.S. loop, and gives you, I mean, a lot of really good story ideas in there. And like you were saying, it breaks all that stuff out. What was popular in Sweden at the time? What was popular in the U.S. at the time? In those cultural aspects, which they are very different. And it's, if nothing else, it's an interesting read just to go through and read that because it's pretty wild how different they really are. Um, well, from
Learning
my
history through TRPGs.
right, right. Hey, and you get to look at some really awesome artwork as you're going through there.
Hmm.
Um, Actually, let me continue on. If I scroll the right screen, that would help.
That
Um,
that is usually helpful. Um, the the picture layout on pages like 40 and 41, I
yep.
think is really cool. It gives me a really strong, almost Fallout feel without the, atomic bombs.
Let's move back over here for a minute and I will take us down there so everybody can see what you're talking about. I don't want to give everybody
You
vertigo
don't
by
want to.
scrolling all this stuff.
That's valid.
I did that once. It was fun for me, not for others, I'm sure.
Mm. But yeah, just like the pictures with the row of houses and the cooling towers, it just really puts you in the right mindset for setting.
Um, it doesn't correspond exactly. What
Ooh,
chapter
it's
is that?
chapter 3.
Oh,
The one that I'm looking at, there's it's Pearson Salvage.
gotcha. Okay. Chapter 3. Best of city. Okay. Page 35. How about that? Okay. Yeah, the PDF and the books don't like correlate directly to each other for the
Yeah.
page numbers, so a little weird, but it works. Ooh, yeah, here's a good one. We'll try this. And let's flip back over here. Some of this art is just amazing, and it's
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that kind of draws you into it is, I mean, it's basically a picturesque scene of something that you would expect to see, but then like this one with those huge towers in there, it's like,
Mm-hmm.
and when you really realize the scale of those towers, it's like, holy crap, those are
Yeah.
monstrous. You know what I mean? They're higher than the mountains. Pretty amazing stuff. And then there's some other art in here. This is just some of the weirdness that's, I mean, this is basically an old robotic piece of equipment that's out there abandoned.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that you can always kind of tailor a story that way. And I think if you guys watched like the Amazon series, there was quite a few episodes that were really kind of tailored towards the robotics piece to it, the machines. Um, Electric State is kind of really centered on that piece. Um, so that's really easy to create story around and blends very well into the system.
I mean, think of what a cool clubhouse that piece of robotics would be for a bunch of kids.
I would have loved that.
Think how much trouble you would get in as a child if your parents found you in that rusty piece of machinery.
That would have been like my spaceship right there.
Yeah.
I mean, absolutely. I'd have been trying to get that thing in orbit. Never
Yeah.
succeeded, but absolutely. It's been awesome. Awesome. And all the 80s style vehicles.
Hmm.
There's Pearson's, and I think there's another.
Yeah, I think at the next on the next page is the one that I was talking about.
Got the maps.
I love that picture right there. I think it is so cool.
This one.
The one that has Pearson's Auto Salvage. I can't
Oh,
see what you're scrolling when you're scrolling it on the screen in
gotcha.
this. So I'm like, what, 5 seconds behind on the
Yeah,
stream watching what
yeah,
you're scrolling through.
yeah. The Pearson salvage
Yeah.
one is pretty cool.
Yeah. Like, and that's the one that to me gives like the sort of almost Fallout post-apocalypse vibes, probably because of the neon sign.
See, I could see kids, I could see a story where, a group of teenagers who, a lot like, like me wanting to, I got my clubhouse spaceship that I'm trying to build. I could see me as that kid going to this Pearson salvage, sneaking in there so I can try and find, stuff to build my ship.
Mm-hmm.
And then who knows what I might actually find in there.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, they have locations inside Boulder City that are listed out like Pearson Salvage, and it gives you a little blurb about the guy that runs it, Billy Pearson, and get an idea of kind of who he is and what he does. He wants to just sell all of this junk.
Right,
Um, Boulder Theater, um, so built in 1933, and it's run down. Everybody's seen one of those like one screen movie theaters that are old and kind of grand looking, but they're kind of run down.
right, right.
And the Boulder Dam Hotel, again, kind of a rundown little old hotel. People are kind of trying to work on it and make it look better, but it's going to take some work. And then the airport, which again is shut down and has been sold to the Elks Club, which made me laugh.
I don't remember the last time I seen an actual Elks Club.
Exactly. And that some kids claim the airstrip still gets used by secret government planes.
Absolutely.
That right there is a plot hook all day long. A bowling
Absolutely.
alley. A bowling alley.
Yeah, I can't remember the last time I went bowling either.
I can't
Mm.
either. It makes me think of Pleasantville.
Yeah,
Good
yeah.
thing we're in a bowling alley.
Or the Big Lebowski. Not a kid style movie, but still.
Yeah, Pleasantville's not really either. But yep, yeah, I can't think of the last time I actually went bowling. Now I've been in a bowling alley. I just can't remember the last time I actually.
Right. Mm.
And then it gives you surrounding areas like Lake Mead and Vegas, which apparently is 25 miles away from Boulder City.
So close.
Yeah, you can get there by bus.
I'm gonna skip over the we'll do in the next session we'll do the character creation piece and really kind of run through the stereotypes there that are created
Hmm.
um character types. I'm stereotypes. Yeah.
I
Um
mean,
they are kind of
not wrong.
stereotypes, but yeah.
They are. They, those also made me laugh because I'm like, oh my God, I knew every single one of those kids growing up.
Yeah, I was probably at least a couple of those stereotypes growing up.
Oh, yeah, at least.
Some of the other concepts in the game, you know, boy, I don't want to go into the character concepts just yet. Um, like one of the ideas, very much like in The Walking Dead, you have a haven. In this game, you have a hideout.
Hmm.
Like it, and that could be that could be anything. That could be that big abandoned robot. That would be my hideout.
Heck yeah.
Um, I would have the coolest hideout out of everybody with that. Um, so what did you have for a hideout when you were a kid? Did you have one?
So I did actually. So the little house that we lived in, it was a 3 bedroom, 1 bathroom, green shag carpet. I mean, it was 80s fabulous. And behind it, at one point, the people who owned it before us had built like a little 1 bedroom, 1 bath, almost like a tiny house, that one of probably a mother-in-law house or whatever,
Right.
which is funny at the time because our house was tiny and this house was super tiny. And yeah, that was basically my hideout. That's where we would go and just, you know, hang out and drink sodas and
Cool.
read comic books and, plot our next Red Dawn campaign, all the things.
That's awesome. I moved around a bit as a kid, so I had several different places. Treehouse for one. That didn't last too long because the some friends of mine and I the treehouse was kind of shoddily built to begin with, and it was old. So
Ah,
one of my friends actually ended up falling through the floor of this thing.
oh
Luckily, it was
no.
only about 10 feet off the ground, so I mean, it hurt. I'm sure,
Yeah.
but he didn't break anything. So we kind of gave up on the treehouse thing. We're like, yeah, maybe not, maybe not.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, we had a cave at one point in time that was pretty cool for a while until we went up there one day and found what we thought was bear scat, and then we decided, yeah, probably not
Yeah,
going to
maybe
do
not
this
always
anymore.
not a good place to be hiding.
Yeah, yeah, we'll find someplace else. He can have it, or she, or whatever. We don't want to do that.
Mm-mm.
So the system itself actually also allows you to kind of build out. It gives you some ideas to help build the backstory piece, and this is a little bit of character stuff. But as I'm looking through this, you see some of the questions that you would ask your character as a kid, and I think it would be interesting to just see what some of your answers are. How's that sound, Foxy?
All right.
All right. You don't have to answer any of these if you don't want to. Um, but so what did your parents do for work?
So my dad was a truck driver. He hauled cattle, and my mom ran a daycare. So
Cool.
that was always very interesting because dad was on the road a lot,
Hmm.
and mom was always working because it didn't matter. Like if I had something going on at school, a lot of times she couldn't be there because she was working. You can't just close a daycare because everybody's like half the town depended on her to watch their kids while they were at work. Like if my mom would have closed up the daycare for a day, the entire town would have shut down. There were like
Right.
5,000 people total in this town. It was tiny. But
I
that's,
I get you. When I first as I was born in Elgin, Illinois, suburb of Chicago. But early on, my family moved up here to Wisconsin, and like this little itty bitty town, literally the population on the number for the population on the sign was 666, and I thought
oh
that
my.
was the most hilarious thing. I'm like 666 people, huh? Wow. And you're bringing
And
me
we're moving
here?
here
I
on
mean, really?
purpose.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. The good thing was because it was such a small town and everything was very tight knit. Like people would call my parent or call my mom and tell her things that I was doing that I was still in the planning stages of doing. Like there was no way for me to get into any real trouble because my mom would have known it the minute it popped into my head because somebody would have seen it cross my face.
Right?
Which, at the time kind of sucked, but thinking back, I grew up in a really safe space. So like when we would go have, like a music contest or whatever, and we would travel and, my mom couldn't be there, but like my best friend's mom and my Girl Scout leader and like all of these people were there.
Right.
So I never really it it didn't hurt my feelings and it didn't bother me that my mom wasn't there because I had all of these other moms that were there. And I think that's kind of where I got my work ethic as a grown up. It's like, going to work every single day. There are days it really sucks, but that's what you got to do to,
Every day.
pay the bills and buy the fun stuff.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Gotta have the money, the fuel, keep the world turning, keep the lights
Hmm.
on, all that good stuff. Food's overrated. I mean, so
You can go
next,
14 days without it. You're fine.
yeah, yeah. I mean, what's the big deal? Um, so next question on here. This is an interesting one. You ready?
Hmm.
What did you think about school?
Loved
Oh,
anybody that has heard me talk about how much I love books is not shocked by that comment. I loved school. I actually credit my high school choir teacher with me not getting into any trouble I potentially could have gotten because while my parents would have been mad, my choir director would have kicked me out of high school choir.
ooh,
And that was I loved choir and I respected him as a human being. So
right.
the thought of him being mad at me was terrifying.
Yeah, I can understand that. I probably was the exact opposite of you, by the way, but yeah, I did actually get kicked out of band, so that was quite an interesting experience. But won't go into that.
Bet. Okay, what instrument did you play?
I played two different. I was percussion. That's what I drums basically. I played
Uh-huh.
symphony, but we had like 12 people that all wanted to play drums.
Oh,
So
sure.
um, since I didn't get along real well with the band teacher to begin with, they decided that I should play something different, along with several others. So I ended up playing the trombone, which I hated.
I can
And
see that.
yeah, yeah. So I sucked at it, and because a combination of things, I like had a practice room to myself almost every day during band. So
Oh,
You know,
no.
I could have been a really awesome trombone player, but I figured out that no one was going to bother me in the practice room, so I could do whatever I wanted. So I would
Oh,
read
see, ulterior
or,
motive.
yeah. I mean, hey, it worked out great for me. Or I'd even do homework, like, because I had several classes after that were the kind of my harder classes. So
Mm-hmm.
rather than do it at home, I'd just do it during band and get credit for my band and then get my homework done.
That
Fantastic.
makes sense. Yeah,
Yeah.
see, our band class was the first hour of the day because there were about 100 students in my high school, and 97 of them were in band. There were only 3 kids that weren't in band.
Ooh, wow.
So, yeah, and I played the clarinet, and I was first chair because, I liked
That's
school and I liked to practice and I was a nerd.
that's the surprising thing is I have a lot of musical talent in my family. Um, but I just didn't, I guess I'm not, my apple fell from a different tree, I guess. I don't know. I wasn't extremely musically talented. So, um, so here's one for you. What was your favorite food? Not now, but what was your favorite food then?
Chicken and cheese chimichangas from the gas station freezer.
Ooh.
Yep, we would go probably once or twice a week, my friends and I, and just basically buy the convenience store was called the Little Store. We would go to
Hmm.
the Little Store and basically buy them out of chicken and cheese chimichangas and hang around in the parking lot and have a feast.
You just like completely, I had one thought of, but you completely changed mine because you reminded me the red hot beef and bean burritos.
Hmm.
I
And
loved those things.
if it wasn't chicken and cheese chimichangas,
Hmm.
there was a pool hall downtown. Technically, it was a bar, but they called it a pool hall because there weren't enough people in town to support a bar. So they let kids start going in there and like play pool and stuff. They had the hot mama sausages.
Right?
Oh my gosh, those were so good. I haven't had one of those in years.
Yeah, I haven't had a lot of the foods I ate when I was a kid.
Hmm.
Probably a good thing, but I mean,
Yeah, but now I really want one of those.
just talking about it, like, where can I get
Hmm.
one? Yeah, yeah. Um, so let's see, I'm just kind of rolling through some of the questions that are on here. I'm going to do one more of these and then I want to get to the group questions too, and just kind of flesh that out, give people an idea of what you can do to build into the story. Um, um, okay, here's one that might apply to you, or you might just have to like make something up for this. But what is your experience with robots?
Back in the 80s, no. However, they did have the little robotic dog toys that you could get that had the little bone that you could get them to walk to you.
Hmm.
I would have loved to have.
I can't remember the name of it. There was a robot movie. There was a couple of them, but there was a robot movie back, I think late 80s, early 90s.
Short
Um,
circuit.
yes, Short Circuit. Yeah, yes,
Johnny Five is alive.
indeed. I liked that movie. I loved that
That
one.
was a good movie.
Yes, yes, it was. So let's do a couple of these group questions. Um, so the group question piece, I'm not going to ask that one. One of the questions is what secrets do you have? So we'll leave that one alone.
Hmm.
Um, uh, what are you fighting about among you? Oh, who among you is the most mocked? Interesting. So these are just some of the things you would go through and kind of decide for your group to really build
Hmm.
into the story. So, some of the questions are who in the group has the most to say, So you got your, your mouthy, talkative one, the one motor mouth that you can't get to shut up.
You've got
Um,
Mouth from Goonies.
yes, yes, you do. When did you get to know each other? So that's, it's a pretty good thing to know. I mean,
Hmm.
um, what makes you laugh? I think a close-knit group of friends would probably understand that about each other.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
what secrets do you have? Which, mm, wow, boy,
I think in this setting, that is a really good question
it is.
because it adds to the mystery.
And right after that is who dislikes you. It's like the player's opportunity to make up their nemesis.
Hmm.
You know, I who wouldn't, that's perfect. Perfect. I get to
Yeah,
make up the perfect nemesis for me. Um, what they're like, who they are, that whole thing, and why.
yeah,
Um, who wants to be in the gang? So who is that guy or girl that, really isn't part of the group, but, they hang on and they try to get you to invite them. And yeah, who's that person?
yeah.
Um, what are you fighting about? I suppose you would have to be fighting with somebody first, but
Although
interesting,
I think in any group of friends, there's always that one thing,
right?
that bone of contention.
Who is in love with whom? That childhood drama style, you know what I mean? Forlorn love,
Hmm.
hoping for the first kiss thing, or, whatever that happens to be.
Yeah.
Um,
Who are you crushing on?
exactly, exactly. Who is the leader? Every childhood
Who
group has
thinks they're
that.
the leader?
Well, exactly. Right. What are you not talking about? And what do you like to do? So that's just some of the stuff that you would go through as a group and just kind of pre-decide. Um, what are these things that in essence dictate our behavior as a group?
Hmm.
Um, I'm going to skip over this. Like I said, I don't want to dig too much into the character stuff because we'll go through all of that during the character building. Um, buying stuff, non-player characters. So adults in this game. What is your impression of adults?
I'm very much imagining Charlie Brown adults for the
Wah,
most
wah,
part.
wah, 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 wah,
Wah,
wah.
wah, 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 wah. Yeah, like you're sitting at the or you're sitting at the breakfast table, and you and your brother or sister are having a conversation, and your parents are in the background talking or fighting or whatever, and all you hear is wah, 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 wah. Of course, they're going to have to interact with adults just in general in their daily lives, and we might need to know more than wah wah. But for the most part, in my head, that is what adults are like in this world.
Right.
Because you're playing from the perspective of a kid. Kids always think they know more than adults.
Yeah, mine still do.
I
Um,
know. I think
and they're adults
my
themselves
oldest
now,
thinks I
but
got a brain transplant because all of a sudden he's asking me for advice. I'm like, I did know this stuff 2 years ago. You could have asked me then.
absolutely. So the mystery. I mean, we've kind of talked about, what we would envision a mystery being. Um, there's a lot of possible options that are given in here. The system provides you with so much brain candy that you don't necessarily. So I think that probably is one thing in people's minds when they look at a system like this is, for especially for a GM as well, how do I create a story like that? Especially if I didn't grow up in the 80s. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
so I have, let's just say I have no idea. I wasn't around in 1980. I'm looking online at some of the stuff, the styles, the music and all this, and I'm just like, no.
Yeah.
um, So the books themselves actually give you a lot of background and the story ideas, possible plot lines for the mysteries. Um, so that's really not as challenging as one might think. Because you coming into a system like this, I could see where that could be a deterrent of a person trying to create something and be like, I don't know whether I can, whether I can tell a story in
Well,
this
and that's
setting.
the thing. I think the way that the book is laid out and the way that they have like they have stories in here that you could go from start to finish in, and then you could move on from that into building more things. It really gives you kind of a primer into time and what was popular and what kids did and all that kind of stuff, and the mindset that you would need to run a game and play in this game. And so it gives you a really, I think there are what, 4 or 5 different phases
Hmm.
of the one. There were 2 or 3 other actual stories in here. Yeah. So you could start out just, especially as a new GM, going through the material that's provided for you, and that's going to spark ideas.
Right. Well, and you can
Like,
always, if you get a good idea, you can always kind of verge away from that and make your own story too.
hmm
I'm sorry, I
yeah,
interrupted you. Keep going.
I think it really just comes down to how comfortable a new GM would be branching off. Um, like my intent is to run a couple of the pre-written modules. Now, as I've read through them, I've come up with a whole slew. I already have a notebook full of do this and we could do this and we could go here. And so I think going through and at least playing through to get the feel of the system and the setting and the game would be helpful, like I said, for a new GM because it's a whole different world, GMing and this world. So having a lot of pre-written stuff that you can kind of draw from, because even if you just take bits and pieces of the later stuff and throw in your own stuff, that would give you more confidence to write more of your own.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, one thing we didn't talk a lot about, we just kind of touched on, because you have these scenarios here which talk about the mystery. So the mystery is only one half of the story. You also then have that other half, which, we kind of talked about the having breakfast, listening to your parents talk about, paying bills or whatever it happens to be. Um, what are some ideas? Because that's kind of the opener piece to it. So you open up kind of trying to give that backstory of the actual character, the kid. Um, but it's not as if you just go out and suddenly the whole story is about this mystery. I mean, you still have your normal everyday life. I mean, if you come in late at home, you got to try and sneak in without your parents catching you.
hmm
You don't have any sleep. You still got to get up and go to school in the morning. Otherwise, something's wrong. So, what would for the game? And I'm cheating a little bit here, but for a game, how would you do that? How would you lay that out to get those pieces in there?
Honestly, I think I would just do a roundtable and basically ask everybody, it's the morning. What does your normal morning look like? Like, you get up in the morning, you have breakfast. Are you one of those people that has the same thing for breakfast? Growing up, I had peanut butter toast every morning for breakfast, every single morning before school. Not by choice. That's just what mom made before she went to work at the
Right,
daycare. Why?
right,
Because we always had bread and we always had peanut butter. Um, and
right.
that was back in the days before cell phones. So, mom would maybe get a call on a payphone from dad letting us know, where he was at and what day of the week he was going to be home and how long he'd be home for, that kind of stuff.
Awesome, awesome stuff. And one of the other there's just so much possibility that you can do with that. And I mean, some of the kids may have been bullied, So that's an aspect that you could put in there. It really depends on what is the. I think a lot of it is really going to depend on the player preference to it, because this game system is designed to be a collaborative system. So the player has, a lot of ability to help generate the story. It's not it's not a dictated story where your GM sits down and writes out the whole, like, we're going to do this, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do this. No, you have your framework, and then your players really are very much a part of that storytelling, and they get the opportunity to kind of generate their own story too. And so with that opportunity, the player could, create whatever type of background or history for their character they wanted to, just depending on what the character was.
Yeah, absolutely. Because like, so it's like everyday scenes, but then you can have what they call everyday scenes with trouble, and it's basically you wake up in the morning and you don't have the happy home life where your mom has peanut butter toast for you and is, rushing you out the door so you get to school on time. It could be the other side of that where, your parents are yelling at you and all you want to do is leave. There's a lot of it kind of depends on what each character wants to do and how they want to play it.
Right. Right. Yeah. So, and what else do I mean, we kind of chewed this up pretty quick. I didn't realize just exactly how you knocked it out of the park. So we now have a free seat to give away to somebody. Um,
Rock on.
yes. Awesome stuff. So thank you very much, guys. We had three contributors tonight. So I'll just take a moment and kind of explain this. So what we do is you have an opportunity to use your channel points to actually buy a spot on the stream. And ideally, we set that up to be a player character for one episode, maybe more, but for sure one episode in our Walking Dead series. It helps create some random personalities to kind of go into that. Um, so there's that opportunity with if you get the ticket. Um, I think we could also extend that out to maybe even a guest spot on the deep dive. What do you think?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
if we have a game system that we're going to be talking about that you're particularly passionate about, or just just want to sit in on the conversation, then we could use it that way as well. So awesome stuff. I'll have to we'll have to see how to handle that free ticket at this point, because we didn't. I know there's a couple people out there that have been saving. Um, Now we have one we can just give away. So.
Yeah, and the ones that are saving are watching The Walking Dead and trying to save our butts every time we get attacked by zombies. They're like, "Oh, well, I almost had enough to buy a ticket, but then I had to save your ass." So
Oh,
sorry.
well, you didn't have to, but
Thanks. I appreciate it. I appreciate the saving of butts because yikes.
yeah, butt saving is a good thing. Absolutely.
Is indeed.
So,
And we
ma'am,
do have some really rich NPCs that they could take over as well.
we do, we do, and I mean, they could if they have a character idea, we could always work something out there too. Because I mean, we have a whole
Mhm.
community full of people right now, so it could be anything. And you're right,
Could be
the
one of the people
NPCs.
hanging out at the end.
We got Bob, we got Mary, we got Bobby, we got
Bill,
Bill. Yeah, Bill. Ooh, that
you
would
know,
be
we need to
interesting.
we need to get that guy who played the general that first night of The Walking Dead at GaryCon to be Bill.
Yes, yes, I think he would do a fantastic job with that. I think he'd do a fantastic job playing Bob, personally.
He would be a really great Bob, but yeah.
Bill is a tough one because I that would be awesome. It really would. That'd be great if somebody wanted to come in and try that. We'd have to work that up and look at how that would. play in, because there's a lot of depth there, and that's kind of a pivotal character at the moment. So
Yep.
that would be cool. Um, I don't know. I think we have like dug through this really quickly. I mean, the booklet itself is like 100 and how many pages is it? 100 and
A lot.
yeah, it's a pretty good sized book.
Yeah, it is
Um,
a good sized book. It would look good on your coffee table, so if you don't have a copy of it, be sure and buy one.
Absolutely. And
191 pages.
191. So yeah, it's a good sized book, and I mean, it
Hmm.
comes as part of a starter kit as well. So you get some other odds and ends in there, plus some dice designed for the game.
And you
Um,
can never have enough dice.
no, you can never have enough dice. Not as an RPer, you can't. And who doesn't want to have the dice that are specific to the game that you're playing, right?
Right?
Um, yeah, I play a lot of games though, so that gets expensive fast. Um,
That's why you just buy the starter kits.
yeah, exactly. Just buy the starter kits.
Hmm.
Speaking of starter kits, if you're interested in one, you can get one just by following the link. Well, it's not a link, you'll have to copy it, but the link is in the chat to razzmatazz.com. Um, you want to get one, you can get one from there, and you can maybe even save a little money doing that. Anything else we have for tonight? I you got some let's plug Saturday again. I mean,
So Saturday, I'm going to have session 0 of the Fallout TTRPG that I'm actually going to be running. I am excited yet terrified because this is something that I said that I would never ever do. I said I would never run a game. Um, but I love the lore and the story and the universe so much that I'm like I can't wait for someone else to run it. So it's going to be laid back. You're going to probably see some epic fails on my part. We're running it in Fantasy Grounds. So again, there's probably going to be some epic fails on everybody's part, but I
hey,
can laugh at myself. So if you're laughing, I'm just going to assume that you're laughing with me.
I'm gonna hang out in the audience and heckle you.
All right.
No,
I mean,
no,
I
no,
fully
no.
like, yeah, it's one of those things where I'm like, you know what? Here's the thing. And the thing is, I got a group of people that I know that I'm comfortable with,
Mhm.
that I know that if in fact I do have some sort of epic failure throughout the night, I'm not going to feel bad because they're all my friends. They all know that I have never run anything before and that my level of anxiety is through the roof.
Oh, you'll be fine. You're gonna be just fine.
So we're going to kind of take it as just basically a conversation amongst friends. We've got some fantastic characters built. And so Saturday, basically, we will be building the characters into Fantasy Grounds and kind of talking about expectations for the campaign, basically an actual session 0 where we're talking about things. That way people can kind of see how one of those is run. Because I think a lot of times you see the game from game session 1, but you don't really see what goes on in the background to get that kind of started.
Right, right.
And I think that's very important too. I think, especially um, in a scenario where you're going to be role playing with people, you have to know what their boundaries are. You have to know what they're comfortable with. You know, you have to know what the expectation and the tone for the tone of the game is.
Right.
But basically, you know, I've pretty much told everybody it's going to be Fallout, which sarcasm is in Fallout's DNA. Like goofy shit, but also, you have some things that are kind of dark and you have some things that are kind of weird and you have super mutants and ghouls and robots and just all of this stuff meshing together. So, but I have talked through some character creation with a couple of the players, and I'm super excited because they've come up with such fun things.
Well, we'll be running Fallout at some point here as well. So it'll be a
Hmm.
while though, because we got some other things that we have to do. Um, but yeah, definitely be there or be square.
Yeah. So Saturday night at believe we said 7 Central.
7 Central. Perfect. Outside of that, make sure that you join us next Thursday for character creation. So next Thursday, we're going to go through and actually create some characters for Tales from the Loop. Um, and the character creation piece in this, I have not created a character for this game, so it looks like it's really easy. So we might actually have a chance to create multiple characters for our one shot.
Oh yeah, it's super simple. I've got um, character creation sheets printed out basically for all of the Free League games because they have those
Yep.
available on their website. So I just went out and printed, a few copies of each of them, and I have them in a binder. That way I can kind of look through as we're going and go, okay, yes, I have that one.
That is awesome. I didn't think of that. That is awesome.
It makes it a lot easier just as you're looking through things and you see something on a character sheet and you're like, wonder what that's about, you know?
Right, right, right. And then you
Yep.
can
And
just
be
go,
sure to
go ahead.
do what?
Then you can just go look it up if there's something on there that's confusing or that you
Hmm.
maybe don't understand. You can just go look it up quick and make sure you understand that part of the system.
Yeah. And I'm a big fan of having, like, even if you have, like, whatever VTT that you're using, um, having a physical character sheet, just because I like the physical things. I like to be able to take notes on things, and you know that's why I have, like, even if I've got something on the VTT, I've also got the physical copy of the book because I never know if I'm going to be like, on my lunch break at work and have a thought be like, I should really look that up. Then I have the book with me and I can look it up. Yes,
Awesome.
I do carry an encyclopedia of RPG books in my work backpack. I do.
I like the physical books too. I just, I always think of it as being, the old school me, but I just like to have the physical book for one thing because I spend so much time on computers anyway. I really don't want to sit here and read a game that I'm interested in off a computer. I'd
Hmm.
rather be able to curl up with the book and read it that way because
Yeah.
I like that. I like being able
Yep.
to feel the paper, smell it. Good stuff.
Yeah. And having the post-it notes on pages like this is here,
Right. Hey, then if the power goes all out, all I need is some candles and I can still play RPGs.
or flashlights.
Okay, flashlights. Yeah.
Or best of both worlds, Dollar Tree has these, they're called emergency candles. They basically take like two AAA batteries, and those heifers last for days. There was a point in time where I had them because I thought they were cool, but we
Hmm.
lost power where I was living for like 4 days. And I only had to change the batteries in those one time, and they burned like we had them on the whole time. So if you're needing emergency lighting, go hit up Dollar Tree and look for emergency candles.
Awesome. All right. So I think that's it for tonight. We're about 45 minutes early. Thank you everybody for joining us this evening, and to all of you who contributed to getting that community challenge taken care of. Thank you very much. I know there's quite a few folks, some that are not here tonight, that contributed to that, and we'll definitely make sure that everybody gets a shout out on that. Much appreciated. Definitely make sure that you catch the stream on Foxy Projects channel for Saturday, Fallout. Um, Regardless of what she says, I'm sure it will be awesome. Um,
It'll be entertaining. I can't say the game will be good, but you will be entertained one way or another. And then be
yes.
sure to be here next Thursday for a deep dive where we'll cover the character creation piece of Tales from the Loop. And then the Saturday after that, we will be doing Walking Dead again, and we will
Yeah.
see.
And then the Thursday after that, we'll be doing our one shot for Tales of the Loop.
Mhm.
All right. And somewhere in there, we'll announce what the next game is going to be that we're going to review. So we have a bit of a schedule put together, and we'll be laying that out there. I don't want to put it out too early because we may make some adjustments based on different games. There's a little bit of debate over what we should do next yet, but we do have a schedule coming up. Thank you very much,
Well, I mean,
everybody.
we could
Oh,
always have the pay-per-view like Creator Clash where we just box it out and whoever wins gets to pick a game.
ooh, yeah, we could do that. Box it out. Oh wow. We're all spread out across the country, so that would be really interesting to do
I mean,
that.
it would be a good excuse for for us all to be in the same location at once.
Right. We could all be in Boulder.
There you go.
That's thinking. See? Yeah. All right, everybody.
Always thinking.
Thank you very much. Everybody have a good night, and we
Good
will
night,
see you
everybody.
on Saturday.